Hello and welcome to Great Movie Scenes, the first series to discuss and explore great scenes from movies. I'm your host, Michelle, and today I'm going to be joined by a Cleveland filmmaker who actually got his start in New York working on a bunch of different projects, and he's just so fancy, and I've known him for a long time. He's my good friend, Zach Schildwalker. And
Hello.
hello. And actually, his first feature, Powerbomb, recently just released to the wide public. So go ahead and check that out. It's on iTunes, Zach, and you could also, where else can you find that film?
It's on iTunes and Amazon and Vudu and Comcast platforms, and it's actually getting a physical DVD release on Tuesday the 14th.
Awesome. Okay, so go check that out. Again, it's Powerbomb, and
Powerbomb, yeah.
yeah, it's a really great film, and I know it was a long time in the making, and you guys are just like really happy just to have it out for the public now, especially during these times where we're looking for as much content that we could get our eyes on. So definitely check out local filmmakers, Powerbomb, check it out. So today, I wanted to talk to you, Zach, about a film that I know is very close to your heart. And when I asked you about a scene from a film, I was guessing you were going to go this route, but let me know what movie you picked and what scene specifically that really impacted.
Well, one of my favorite movies of all time is Clive Barker's Nightbreed. And the scene that I picked is one of the opening scenes of a random suburban family in their home and the terror that they experience late one night.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up this scene and we're going to watch it and then we're going to chat about it after. So let me just share my screen really quick. Okay. And I'm going to play. I hope this is loud for you, but there are some scary noises, so I hope not to scare you.
There's the steal by Roberts. Over the loop. Oh, what a save there by
Okay. So that yeah, so that's just yeah. I do like scary movies, but yeah, I'm also chicken. So what was it about that scene specifically that really sticks out to you as being just because it's scary, but it also has it's very relatable because it's just like this kind of like normal family. They're just
Mhm.
cooking, watching sports. So I mean, what was it that really stuck out to you and is like a scene that for you to remember?
As it is with humans battling monsters and things like that, it starts off with this very normal family, the suburban family of, this guy looks like Joe the plumber and his, kind of middle-aged wife. She's no frills to her. And they have this son that kind of comes downstairs and says, kind of the boogeyman is here. And she said, no, it's okay. Go back to sleep. And sure enough, the boogeyman is there and breaks in through the mud room into the living room. And it's just in terms of slasher killers, masked slasher killers, everybody talks about Jason or Michael Myers or something like that, but like, Dr. Decker really gets in there and just makes quick work of it. And the artistry and the cinematography, in my opinion, is what makes it so brutal and cathartic at the same time, where you see these three, I think they're oranges that roll across the floor in blood, and the switch in the edit from the mother on the floor and her POV looking up at the killer standing over her, and then switching to the POV of the child looking down, and then just like the little nuances of setting the mood lighting You know, the dad thinks that he's possibly going to get lucky while he's watching his hockey game, but no, he gets his throat slit. And I mean, that's just terrifying. And you would think any other point that would be the end of the terror, but then you see the killer start to walk up the stairs towards this completely defenseless child, and just the spindles of the staircase looks like there's nowhere for him to go. You know, he's trapped in a prison of his own home, which is supposed to be the last, kind of fort of protection kind of thing. And it elicits so much terror, and it's a super quick sequence. It's not very long at all, but it's just it's nerve scraping.
Well, and for me, just seeing that scene, it's also like I have not seen the whole movie, although I've known you for 7 years, and that's the bulk of what you talk about. I still haven't seen the movie, but that scene alone, just the performance from the small kid, I was not sure if he was like just terrified and defenseless and not knowing how to react, but the way his performance of just kind of being emotionless, I almost saw it as like almost like a Damien from The Omen kind of feel of like, wait, is he kind of orchestrating this? Like it's just that scene alone, that's what I took from it. So I don't know. I mean, no spoilers. I will watch the movie, but I mean, just yeah.
And you're lucky. There's 3 versions of the film. There's the the theatrical cut, the director's cut, and then the Cabal cut.
Oh, okay, cool.
So there's quite a lot of history with the film. Like this film, there's footage that was lost for 20 plus years. They did a restoration. The film was basically Morgan Creek wanted to be kind of like New Line Cinema. You know, they were the house that Freddie built. Yeah. And so, there's Freddie, there was Jason, there was a slasher fandom at its all-time peak. And they had the guy that did Hellraiser, the guy that did Pinhead. He's going to do a new movie for them and give them this icon. And he turned in this film where humans were the bad guys, and it wasn't really clear. It was more of an ideology that was the villain rather than just a singular person. Okay. And they just didn't get it. They didn't know how to market it. So, they kind of recut it and made this one story. And then they found all this footage that was lost. And it was supposed to be, we always hear about that, DVDs or Blu-rays that have extended scenes, and it's like 5 seconds there, 10 seconds there, stuff to make the MPAA happy. But this was like 40 plus minutes of stuff completely changes character arcs and story arcs and all that. So, Clive Barker went in and he was able to do a director's cut with the folks over at Shout Factory, and part of their Scream Factory label, and re-delivered this entirely new vision of it. I mean, it's Ryan Murphy like 20 plus years before Ryan Murphy. Like there's a whole song and dance number in it. Like it's wild. And then between both of the discovery of this footage, they made what's known as the Cabal book, or the Cabal cut, which is based on the Cabal book. Okay. And it's everything. It's everything from the theatrical cut, everything from the director's cut, everything nuts and bolts, start to finish. Mm-hmm. Some of the elements are still in like VHS format. They just weren't able to be archived and saved. But it makes it like a 3-hour plus film. Wow. And then there's rumors that they found even more footage. So I'm really excited for this. Like these cuts of this film should not exist, and they do. So, and in my opinion, they're 3 separate films. It's just wildly different.
Well, I mean, the way that you describe it, I feel like in 100 years, somebody's going to find like a time vault, and there's just going to be even more footage. Like it just seems like there was just so much content that didn't make the final cut, but like they still had this plan of like a bunch of different variations of a story, and that's really cool. I think that's kind of rare. I mean, like sometimes you'll hear about like movies or TV shows, they like will shoot an alternate ending, but like I was always under the impression that like it was to kind of chase off anybody who might leak the story. Like I didn't think it was just from like an actual artistic vision of seeing a bunch of different variations to it. But from your perspective, because again, just watching this scene, I can see how this has influenced your filmmaking, because you've done films in the past that are horror, and they're scary, but they're also relatable. Like when you did Scum, it was just about a very normal guy, and just he snaps. And you might see me wearing a totally retro pink jumpsuit. We won't talk about that.
You
but
were
that's
such a trooper
relatable.
on that shoot. Like, we
That
had you in the worst jumpsuit. I mean, this thing was like Easter pink, like pastel pink, like and you had Sammy, your dog, who was amazing to work with. And then we're shooting in this fluctuating weather that Cleveland is known for this time of year. I mean, it was like snowy and icy, but like just warm enough for it to be muddy too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a great concoction of things. But no, it was fun. I mean, it was fun, but it was cool because the whole story of that, it was not, for me at least, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but like I do like horror films, but I like them when they're entrenched in some kind of relatability. So like The Exorcist, I was just talking about this the other night. Like The Exorcist, I terrifying to me, but only up to a point. Like when it starts to get super gory and she looks like something other than human, it's not as scary to me. But in the moments where she just kind of looks like a normal human being and is like doing these weird things, that's terrifying to me. So with this, like you do have this like monster, but like it's just people in their homes and they're just like being normal. And it's not some kind of like fantastical world that you can't relate to. You can relate to being in your home, watching a movie, cooking, and somebody comes in. Like that's what's scary, at least to me. So I mean,
Mm.
how do you feel like this movie really kind of informed some of the horror that you went on to make, or other horror films that you went on to just like binge and love?
Well, I think for me with Nightbreed, at its core, it's about feeling like you don't belong, like you're looking for a tribe of people that are like-minded, that will understand you and ultimately accept you as you are, no matter what you've done, what sins you've committed, what crimes you've come across, that kind of thing. And ultimately, it's the humans are the bad guys, monsters are the good guys, and it's kind of this sweeping essay on morality is based on might versus right, and history is written by the winners, and what we hold to be true and self-evident, and justice for all, that kind of thing. But it deals with such fantastic elements as well. And I think that the artistry is not just in the special effects and the creature design, because it's fantastic. Even 20 plus years later, 30 plus years later, I believe. But it's just the way that it's shot. And I mean, that opening sequence, you use POV, you use these amazing inserts and all that, and it's just this quick dance. It's almost like salsa or modern tap kind of thing, watching that. The film, like it definitely influenced me in terms of working with themes, of having something to say beyond just what the characters are talking about. Like, what does it mean for these characters to interact? What is it that they want? What is their common goals? What unites them? What divides them? And what's the cost of all of it? And that's what I try to approach my stories with. Is there a bit of humanity to people that we like to look at that we say don't have it? Is there any good in bad? Is there bad and good, and things like that? So,
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like I think a lot of people, they don't give different genres credit for being as in depth as you just described. I mean, I think there might be a throwaway sentiment of horror films just being like, oh, they're just just scary, they're meant to like be a bunch of like jump scares to like freak you out, and they're meant for Halloween,
mhm.
whatever. But I mean, the way that you just eloquently described that, it's more than just, I don't mean to say it's more than just a horror film, but I mean it
Mhm.
is. I mean, it has a heart and meaning to it,
Yeah.
which is really, really great, and not something that I think that, for me, as somebody who likes horror films, but it's not my favorite genre, I think I might not be able to pick that up all the time. So I mean, that's kind of a disservice on my part.
It helps us confront the things that we don't necessarily want to talk about, and in ways that are a bit more polite than if we just spearheaded it straight on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as much as I love elevated horror, which is the common nomenclature these days, I mean, I love all the sleaziness of it too. I mean, just blood and teen A. I mean, that's what got me through puberty. You know what I mean? That's that's the beauty of the horror genre. Like, it swings to both ends of the pendulum of, you know, where you could have something as Oscar winning as, you know, Silence of the Lambs and that kind of thing, or, you know, Hereditary or Midsommar or something like that, which is, you know, more art house, to, you know, just the films that I have in my collection, like Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers or Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, or, you know, just total cheese. Like, that's the beauty of it. And I think that there's a lot of genres that don't do that could. I think comedy is probably the closest to that. But yeah, you know, I would love to see that with other filmmakers too, and kind of embrace those means to tell fun stories in fun ways. I mean, it doesn't all have to be serious, but it does lend itself sometimes, just with the gravity of the situations that these characters find themselves in.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you mentioned Ryan Murphy earlier, and I think, you know, I'm a big fan of American Horror Story, and I think he actually was able to like straddle that medium of, you know, some tried and true horror while also making it commercial and relatable and having like really dense and heavy like character arcs. So I think he was able to find a way that it's, you know, people who are tried and true to horror, they love it. And then like people who are on the fence, they love it. People who, you know, are not into horror also love it. So he was able to kind of make it relatable. But one last question, because you mentioned and you were talking a lot about the cinematography of the scene that we showed, and you're, you know, mentioning like POV views and everything. Do you think that if there were different cinematographer, like if there was a different cinematographer on the project, or if there were just kind of different, you know, cuts, do you think it could have ruined that scene? Like, do you think the cinematography of that specific scene really was kind of the main character?
I would say so, because I think it's, you know, when you mirror it against the genre itself, horror films are always trying to scare their audience. That's what they exist to do. I mean, they can elevate it in different ways. I mean, you can talk about social themes. You can introduce a lot of different things. I mean, with Ryan Murphy, like I love the fact that he's able, between that commercial availability that he brings to his projects, that he can still throw in a song and dance number, and also like give opportunities to people that are largely marginalized. Like the fact that he had multiple seasons with an actress that had Down syndrome. Like that's huge. Like, you don't see that in other projects. But speaking on this one about this scene particularly, I think that that scene could have easily been overshot and, you know, just cut. But it's competing with the stories that were coming before it as well. You know, with John Carpenter's Halloween, you had that amazing scene where it's shot through the mask and you just have the two eye holes. And it's like, well, how do you top that? How do you put us into that situation and make us just as scared? And with this scene, I think they do it so eloquently and so well, where they put you in not the killer's POV, but the victim's POV of, you know, you're the mom on the floor and he's just standing over and walking. You know, the camera's pointed directly at an overhead light. I mean, that's something most cinematographers never want to do, is point their camera directly at a light. And it works so well. And that shadow play of them walking up the stairs of just these bars of just like, you know, this animal uncaged and loose. So I think that it's just enough. And I think that nowadays people, they want to be super flashy. It's like, well, how many GoPros can we throw on this? You know, can we put one on the knife as it's stabbing the person going in, you know? And I think that that's the thing is the scene is brutal. But it's not gratuitous. Like, I think that that's the thing. And when you watch the film, you kind of get into the psychology of the killer, especially with the different cuts. I mean, the the cuts definitely change, Dr. Decker's mindset in that. And I think you'd be really engaged by it. And I mean, I can wax philosophical on this film all day, like for a week straight. But I admire the restraint in this scene particularly, because when it opens up the gears and it hits the gas pedal for the rest of the film, when you dive into this world of monsters and you're like, oh, okay, now we're full throttle. Like it really sets the pace and the tone of what we're getting into.
Well, I mean, awesome. I mean, thank you. Like, I really like how, like, just how you talked up this movie. It does make me want to see it. And if that first scene is any indication of what the rest of the movie would be like, I think it would actually be something that I would like really be into.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, thanks so much for picking that, and thanks so much for just like, you went like really in depth, and I appreciate it, because it's like, for, like I said, somebody like me who's like kind of on the fence of horror, like understanding it and like the explanation that you gave, it makes me kind of want to reevaluate some of the horror films that I've seen before, that, and like not just kind of like dismiss them as just, just being scary. Like there is more of a story to it. So thank you so much for picking the scene and for explaining it. So I just want to thank everyone again for tuning in to Great Movie Scenes, the first show to discuss and explore great scenes from movies. Thanks to our guest, Zach Schildwalker, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me.